Welcome back everybody to another fabulous production of the Swen Living YouTube channel. Today I asked ChatGPT a very specific question. Give me a list of copes that people use to feel better about their bad genetic makeup. Give me 30, keep it short. The reason why I asked this specific question is because I have been seeing a lot of people who are genetically fucked who try to seek out solutions on why their life is just overall bad or why they're just miserable in life. So they go onto the internet and they try to seek out help from other people, from these influencers who want to manipulate and sort of like abuse them, to guide them and to guide them into a funnel of them giving money to these influencers so that these influencers can live free in this world whilst they're just suffering in general, because many of the things in life you cannot really fix, because life gives you a certain genetic makeup, a certain amount of genes and a certain amount of things that you can pursue, so you're kind of limited with options. That kind of drops into the category of genetic determinism. That's a very big and huge topic that I cannot really deal into one video. But anyways, there are many people who are fucked up who seek solutions. And many of these individuals give solutions. But many of these solutions are either copes or just straight up lies. So therefore, I wanted to rank them in a list to determine which one is really a huge cope and which of them aren't really copes. Because even though copes are bad, I do not generally believe that coping is just a huge bad thing in life. For example, I believe that going to the gym is a cope, but I'm not saying that that's a bad cope. For example, you see progression in your physique, you're building your physique, you are much more healthier. But if your genetic makeup is kind of fucked, your physique is not really going to be looking that great compared to other people on social media. So therefore, yes, going to the gym is a cope in a certain framework, if you want to put it in that way, but it's not a bad cope. So therefore, without bothering you anymore, let's jump into the video. The first cope of today is looks don't matter. And this is one of the biggest lies if you truly believe in this. So this goes in the first tier. Your life is a lie. The reason why this is such a huge cope is because even though, yes, we men look at women in the sense of like beauty, for example, if you have a girlfriend or one of your friends has a girlfriend, the most common question for him about the girlfriend is, how does she look like? Whilst the opposite for the other gender, for example, when a woman has a boyfriend, other women will ask the girl, what does the boyfriend really work? Well, that's pretty much a lie. Everybody just straight up asks how he looks like. And people judge people based on how they look. They do not know what you work or where you work or how hard you work. They just look at you and they just judge you in a straight second, because looks are biological. People look at looks and they determine your biological value. For example, you see someone who is taller, who is much more attractive than you, you're just automatically judging him straight away. Maybe you're looking at him from a envious position or the position of jealousy. For example, when you see a shorter guy who is like uglier, or like he's like fat or just generally not really falling into the beauty standards of today, you're not really feeling competition from him. You're just looking at him and you're just thinking like, he's not really a threat. Women judge looks much harsher than men. If you see people, for example, when a man judges you based how you look like, it's not really truthful to the matter, because women truly judge someone by how they look. That is the reason why all of this looks maxing thing and clavicular and the black pill really exploded in the recent time, is because many people see that all of these other things, for example, earning money, going to the gym and just doing many things, many of these people see that these things don't really work and that women generally go for good-looking men. And I do not really want to revolve this entire video about like dating and just women in general. This video goes more into everything. For example, looks just don't go in the sense of like attracting girls. Every single human being judges you on your looks. Even the kids. Because kids do not understand like societal norms. Kids just look at you and they automatically, biologically, naturally, animalistically judge you on how you look like. For example, there's just kids who will look at you and they will like cry, and they're just kids who just look at you and just they think that you're just attractive. Now, I do not want to be talking about looks for the entire video, but you need to understand that if you truly believe that your looks don't matter, you're living such a huge lie. Your looks matter far more than you believe they matter. The second cope of today is personality matters more. This kind of ties in with the first question, with the first answer, for example, looks don't matter, therefore personality matters more. If you know someone for a very long time, for example, I don't know, more than 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, yes, at that point personality truly matters, but at the first stage of talking to someone and just getting to know someone, they do not know your personality. They do not know who you are or what you do or the depths of your character. So therefore, the only thing that they can judge is looks, is the things that you portray. So personality matters more later, but the problem is that if you do not have the looks, they will not go through the door to look into your personality. So yes, it's a cope, but it's not to the point where it's an entire lie, like your life is a lie. So this goes in the second tier. The third cope is confidence is everything. I could see that this works. For example, yes, it is important to go through life with confidence, because if everybody judges you and if everybody is against you, at least you yourself should not be against yourself. You should be with yourself constantly. You should be encouraging yourself to live a good life. But the problem is that if you portray confidence, and if you're not good looking, and if you're not that guy, that confidence may look fake. That is called fake confidence. For example, you may see sometimes, for example, have you ever seen like a guy who's like not, who's not him, who's like, for example, like he's like ugly, who's like low intelligence, his personality is just shit, and he acts overly confident in everything that he does, and you're just spiked with that, not really anger, but that frustration to the point where, how doesn't he see himself being such a fool? Like, he's such a fool to the point where he doesn't see it, but everybody around him sees that. That's the reason why there are people who are just, for example, fucked in the looks department, who believe that confidence is everything and that confidence can overcompensate for looks. But for some people it just does not work. I made a video back then, I do not really remember, maybe 1 year ago, when I talked about confidence, how confidence is pretty much your looks. For example, how you were treated in your past. And how you were treated in your past is predetermined by looks, because kids are barbarians. Kids are not civilized. Kids are not going to really give you a chance to like get to know each other. If a kid likes you and a kid sees you and he wants to hang out with you and do activities together, it is mainly because of looks as well. That's the reason why you can see many people who are like, for example, like ugly or nerdy, or they wear glasses, or they're not really attractive, who are not confident. Was there are many people who are tall and handsome and muscular who are very, very confident in life. Having confidence is very important, yes, I agree. But applying this mindset thoroughly, like 100%, is kind of very damaging, because if you do not see the strings and if you cannot see other people looking at you from their own perspective, you are going to be living a lie. Once again, saying confidence is important, but also at the same time it is a cope. So this goes in the mid tier, because if being confident works out for you, then it works. It's a good thing. The fourth cope of today is beauty is subjective. This is also kind of a cope. That's also kind of a very big cope. Have you, for example, ever seen like a woman say that they like nerdy and shy men? And there's like a meme of like a very attractive guy, for example, like a model, and they just photoshopped glasses onto him, and now he's like the nerdy, attractive guy. Beauty is subjective to the point where there are like minute details. For example, oh, he wears glasses, or he has blue eyes, or he has this, he has that. But beauty is far more objective than subjective in reality, because what women seek and what men seek are naturally what we want, what we biologically want, what we see as beauty markers, as health markers. For example, when you see a guy who is tall and attractive, and when you see a woman who possesses that hourglass figure of having like big breasts and a big ass and a beautiful face, all of those are health markers, and health markers are beauty markers. So therefore, beauty is objective. Your bone structure shows you, for example, how your ancestors lived. For example, if your ancestors, for example, hunted and they were very energetic and active, and they like ate good quality meat, and they ate good animal products, and they did not, for example, like starve themselves, or they did not have to pick berries or just farm potatoes out of the ground, they will naturally look better. So when women look at you, and for example when men look at women, we're looking at beauty markers who are health markers. So even though, yes, to some people beauty is subjective in the sense of like minute details, overall, beauty is far more objective than objective. So this goes in the there are flaws in your logic tier. The fifth cope of today is someone will love you for who you are. Unfortunately, that is also very, very untrue, because there are many people who are just being themselves, but they get absolutely no attention from other people. Because, once again, looks are pretty much everything. People kind of throw this someone will love you for who you are around answer because they do not want to fix themselves, because they believe that they are perfect, or not really perfect, they just want to be themselves. But there are many people who possess character traits that are just not attractive whatsoever. So therefore, they kind of need to cope with themselves, for example, by saying to themselves that someone will love you for who you are, whilst objectively speaking, you just do not want to change. You just want to remain either lazy slob or something that other people find unattractive. For example, I believe that there are many losers who, for example, play League of Legends all day, who do not train, do not work, don't really do anything in life, who tell themselves that someone will love you for who you are, because putting in the work is tough and it's very hard, and many people do not want to put in the work. But if you're actively working on yourself and you're pushing through the day and you're just hustling and all of that, that's a very good cope to have. Because if you believe that going through life and working on yourself whilst hating yourself, for example, you kind of visualize that you're like this Guts from Berserk character where the entire world hates you and you're just fighting against the world and you're just this Sigma grindset guy whilst nobody's loving you, that's a very bad mindset to have, because you will just burn out one day. You're just fueling your progression and your workouts and just your hustle and grind in life by hate, whilst one day that hate will explode. You will not have hate anymore and you will just be left with depression and stagnation. That's the reason why if you're working with yourself and on yourself, having this belief that someone will love you for who you are, that may help you genuinely. I genuinely believe that that will help you. So I'm putting this in a helpful cope. But you also need to understand that that's also kind of falls into the category of cope, because people see looks as the most important thing objectively. The sixth cope is money compensates for looks. Kind of to the point. Yes, there are flaws in this logic. For example, you can pay prostitutes. I can right now go and pay a prostitute to give me love, but that's not really love. That's just sexual satisfaction. That's not really genuine love. So by saying that money compensates for looks, you're kind of going in a good direction, but you will not really get what you desire. For example, if you truly desire genuine love, this is a lie. This is a total cope. You will not get genuine love by just putting money on the table for a girl. You need to have much more things. You need to have many things. You need to have status, money, looks, one of the most important things, looks. But if you only have money, that is a cope. If this works, it works, definitely. I'm putting this in this tier. It is definitely still a cope. There are flaws in your logic. Actually, let me put it in this tier, because there are many flaws in this logic, but it's still a good cope to have. The seventh cope of today is everyone gets someone eventually. Statistics do not show this. Statistics definitely do not show this. It says that over like 60% of men never asked a girl out, and that there are just many single men out there who are just very pathetic and very sad about their existence in general. And for example, how women just look at the top 10% of guys, and if they're like not in those top 10% of guys, they're just spending those time with other people. For example, beta orbiters, that's like the word that they're like saying today, beta orbiters, who just orbit around women, who give them everything, whilst a woman is just waiting for their chance to hop into, like, I don't know, Chad's lap. That's the reason why there's a saying that a man gets what he gets and a woman gets what she wants. So therefore, everyone gets someone eventually. That's one of the biggest lies, because statistics go against that. The eighth cope of today is that looks fade away. This is not a cope. That's objectively true. The more that you get older, your looks just fall apart. Because what is looks? Looks are beauty, and beauty is health markers. If you're old, you're not gonna be beautiful as you were, like for example, in your 18 years of life, or if you were like 20 or 25. If you're 40, 50 or 60 and just getting older and older, yes, objectively, looks are fading away. But you need to understand that people throw this scope around because they do not want to work on themselves. For example, they're like, I don't know, 15, 16, and they're like fat, and they just say that, oh, looks will just fade away one day anyway. I believe that there are certain frames and that there are certain areas and timings in your own life that you need to achieve at certain ages of your own life. For example, you need to have like a first relationship before the age of 20. For example, it doesn't have to be before the age of 20, it can be before the age of 25. I'm just throwing out examples. Like your first kiss at this age, your first, I don't know, fight in front of a bar, your first car crash, all of these events. All these events have a certain part or timing in your life that kind of needs to like step in. Because there are many people who, for example, never have been in a relationship, who are, for example, 27, and they just like short circuit and their like brain is constantly stuck in arrested development. So therefore, this objective is not a cope, looks fade out anyway, but you need to understand in what context that is thrown out. The ninth cope of today is that kindness beats attractiveness. Also a lie. If you know the story of Jeremy Meeks, or you know many felons who, for example, are like model material, they're just attractive, there are many women who just disregard your kindness to go for them, because naturally, in the nature, kindness does not exist. When the lion sees a gazelle, the lion will run at the gazelle, and the lion will just destroy the gazelle. The morality and kindness was developed by humans for a better society. But in the nature, and because we're still animals, and we still live in the animal kingdom, we're just surrounded by walls, and like we sleep in beds and we use technology, we're still animals. We still came from apes, and apes are fucking brutal. Apes are not kind. If you look at a gorilla in a very negative sense, for example, with your eyesight, and you make eye contact, that gorilla will see that as intimidation. That gorilla does not care if you're a kind person or this. That gorilla will absolutely annihilate you. Kindness beats attractiveness, that's just a total fabrication. People lie to themselves if they say this. That's just a complete fucking lie. The 10th cope of today is inner beauty is what counts. People cannot see your inner beauty at the first stance. And the first stance, the first impression is very, very important. Inner beauty is what counts. That's a total lie. I mean, yes, at some later points, it's the same thing with personality matters more. It works only if you know the person for a very long time. But at the start, that doesn't matter. At the start, looks matter far more. And first impressions are very important because you cannot really break first impressions. If someone sees you as a retarded dude, and later you kind of prove them that you're not this kind of stupid guy, they will still look at you as a stupid guy for a very long time, because people do not want to break the first impressions. So this goes in their flaws in your logic. Another cope of the day, just be yourself. Once again, one of the biggest lies out there, because there are many people who are being themselves, but the people are not really respecting these people. For example, yes, it is important to be yourself. It is always important to be your authentic self. But if you yourself are a complete fucking loser, then that's not important. That's a cope. Just be yourself. Like, if you're yourself just a fat slob and a fat loser, and you're just like nobody, and you want to be nobody, then that's a complete fucking cope. So I'm putting this in their flaws in your logic. The 12th cope of today is the right person won't care. I mean, yes, in theory, the right person won't care, but where is the right person, and how do you find the right person? And even though, yeah, in this context, that the right person won't care, I still believe that subconsciously, yes, the right person would care about your own looks and how you just act in general. So I'm putting this in their flaws in your logic. The 13th cope of today is that focus on self-improvement. I believe that every single black pillar started with self-improvement. They went to the gym, they tried doing this, they tried doing that, but after some time, they kind of failed. And the reason why they failed is because they found out that they have a genetic limit. And they very quick find out that life is brutal. Life is not fair. Nature is not fair whatsoever. That's the reason why there are many people who focus on self-improvement, and yes, objectively, their life got better, but they have not achieved the results that were promised to them. For example, you just go to the gym, you earn money, and then just magically a woman spawns in your life, and just that life is just amazing. at that point life is amazing. Whilst objectively, life is full of problems, and life is full of unfairness and unjust. If your genetics do not complement your own self-improvement journey, then you will not really get the results that you seek after. For example, I do not have very good bodybuilding genetics, I still built a pretty good physique, and I still kind of like it, but I have not achieved the results that were promised to me by, I don't know, people who just go to the gym in general. But it still helped me, to some point. So this idea, focus on self-improvement, very much depends on your genetic potential. So that's the reason why I'm putting this in the category of if it works, it works. The 14th quote of today is that gym fixes everything. No, that's the reason why the term gym cell exists, because there are people who the only thing that they pursue in life is the gym, and they believe that they're like this productive guy because they go to the gym and they just lift weights. I mean, many people have their own definition of what success is. For example, some people look at success in the sense of like, oh, I have a good physique, so therefore I'm successful. Yes, I also have some pretty decent biceps, so I'm kind of successful right now, but my life is not fixed. My life is not fixed whatsoever. I still have many problems that I still need to pursue, but the gym fixed a little bit. Just like a little bit. Yes, it kind of boosted my confidence, it kind of boosted my own self-image, but still, gym does not fix everything in your life. And you should throw away the idea that just because you go to the gym, that you're just this productive and good guy. No, throw that cope away. That's actually a very damaging cope. If you genuinely believe that just going to the gym is like everything. For example, you go to school, you work a dead-end job, you feel like shit, and then you go to the gym to like fix your life. The gym just gives you a good physique. That's that. And I'm not dissing on the gym because I have spent a long time in the gym and I fucking love it, but truth be told, it did not fix my life. That's the reason why this goes in a very high tier. The 15th quote of today is that charisma beats genetics. Nope, it's the same thing that I said that kindness beats attractiveness. Like, no, nature does not look at charisma, nature does not look at that. For example, I could show you like images of people, of attractive people, and people just automatically think that they're like charismatic. And once I show you that there's like a guy who's like an ugly guy, you'll say that he's not really charismatic. Of course, he can be a charismatic and a good guy, but people will not look at him as this charismatic guy. So this goes in the top tier. You can kind of link this argument with the idea that if you're weak, you're not a good person. For example, there are many people who see themselves as good people because they never hurt anyone, or they never insulted anyone, and they think that they're like a good person because of that. While subjectively speaking, they have not insulted or hurt anyone because they cannot, because they're weak. So therefore, that kind of comes into the Nietzsche part, like Friedrich Nietzsche, and like, he does not look at good and evil, he looks at weak and strong. I believe that only good people and strong people can be charismatic. If you're weak and fucked, you cannot be charismatic, because your only option is to be charismatic. You can't understand what I mean. A good person is not a good person because he has to be a good person. A good person is a good person because he has the capability of applying damage and he's able to hurt other people. That's the reason why he's a good person. The 16th quote of today is that dating apps aren't real life. One of the biggest quotes, once again. The vast majority of women are chronically online. They are very much addicted to social media, and dating apps are social media. So, for example, there are many people who believe that dating apps, like, oh, I will not use dating apps, because I believe that dating apps are a septic pool and dating apps are not real life. Okay, you're not using dating apps, but these women are using dating apps, and you're after these women. So therefore, you not using dating apps is just, you're not doing anything realistically. Because women are constantly bombarded with good-looking men on social media and platforms and dating apps to the point where why would they not use them? Like, they're literally benefiting from it so much to the point where dating life or dating apps is real life. For example, there are many older dudes who believe that, oh, the phones are the biggest problem of the modern youth, and that phones are not in touch with reality. That's a half truth. Yes, I believe that technological advancement and that mobile phones are very damaging to people, but dating apps are a reality. Mobile phones are a reality. For For example, you get news through memes, you get information through your phone, you send emails through phone, you talk to people through phone. All of these are reality. For example, yes, I could right now pick up my phone and I could look at my phone, and yes, you can tell me that, oh my god, yes, you're just staring at a screen. But I'm not staring at the screen, I'm staring through the screen. For example, when I look at a phone and I look at, like, for example, like a reel of someone like driving a motorbike, I'm not looking at the phone. I'm looking at a person driving a motorbike. It's like real life. It's just artificial. It is real life. That's the reason why dating apps are real life, because the things on dating apps happen also in real life. It is just on steroids. It's just on big ass steroids. The 17th quote of today is that people mature and stop caring about their looks. People stop caring about their looks is because, for example, they found a partner and they do not have the reason to focus on looks anymore. I know many men, many friends who, as soon as they get a girlfriend, they just completely give up. They stop caring about themselves, they stop going to the gym, they stop focusing on themselves, and they just turn fat and ugly. And they do not look good anymore. So that's not really maturity. So that's kind of, they're like flaws in your logic. That's a cope. People mature and stop caring about their looks. Yes, they stop caring about their looks, but they're not mature. They're just like throwing their chances away. Like their partner would look at them 5 years ahead of time and they would just think, oh my god, I married a lazy slob. I married an ugly dude. Like how could this happen? The 18th quote of today is that love is about connection. Oh my god, that is a brutal cope. That is a brutal cope. Because I want to have this cope, but I understand that looks is love. For example, if you want attraction, if you want a woman to love you, not your money, not your status, but you, your looks are you. That's you. For example, when you have a lot of money and there's like a woman who loves you, she doesn't love you, she loves the money. If you have a lifestyle and a woman likes you, she doesn't like you, she likes the lifestyle. That's the reason why there's a term called passport bros. There are many older dudes who are like 50 who go into Thailand and they just throw and love bomb and they just throw away all of the money onto some random Filipino women because they love the money. They do not love him. They love the concept. They love the bombing of cash and money. That's the reason why if you have money, she loves you for your money. If you have a car, she likes you for your car. But if you have the looks, if you're like genetically superior than the average guy, she will love you for you, and that is forever. That's the reason why love is about connection. Yes, you connect with the person later on, and then you may form like deep, true love. But to get to that point, you need to have looks. That's the reason why there are flaws in your logic if you truly believe that love is all about connection, because it is not all about. Yes, you want to connect with a woman, you want to be spiritually connected with a woman and be a human being, but you cannot really achieve that if you're like not that guy. I'm sorry to say that. The 19th cope of today is that everyone has flaws. Yes, that is definitely true. That's not really a cope, but some people just generally they do not have the flaws like other people have. For example, yes, there are people who have flaws. I also have many flaws. But I'm not, for example, disabled. I'm not in a wheelchair. There are people who are far more flawed than I am. And I'm not saying like flawed in the like derogatory sense of like putting other people down. I'm saying like flawed in the sense of like just naturally and objectively. I do not want to spike other people's feelings. I do not want to hurt other people by saying like, oh, you're genetically inferior, or oh, you're ugly. I'm just saying from the objective point because reality is brutal. And I believe that being direct and objective is far more helpful than just lying and gaslighting other people. When you say that everyone has flaws, yes, that's a truth. That's definitely a true. It's a good cope to have because you're just thinking to yourself, oh, I'm a flawed person and I see that guy also has many flaws, so therefore I feel better. But there are some people who just have flaws, but they're not as critical as yours. For example, you can't really compare a child who is like 6'4" and a guy who is like 5'6" and he's like, I don't know, he has rotten teeth genetically. Some people are just so fucked up by nature to the point that their entire life is a flaw. Sorry for stuttering. The 20th cope of today is that standards are unrealistic. And yes, that's definitely true. That's not a cope. There are just so many people in general. For example, there are many women who, and there are many men who, for example, are good guys. Generally, they have a good paycheck, they have good things going on with their own lives, but they're just not that top guy. They're not just that good and superior guy. And by showing women and by freeing women, I'm not saying this. I do not want to get banned off YouTube so quick. I do not want to be censored. But my personal belief that, sorry, I'm kind of going off topic, but it's still kind of related. I personally believe that the reason why the incel epidemic exists is because once you free women and once you give them options to choose, there are no arranged marriages, there are no social stigmas, there are no social pressure. Of course, they're gonna choose for the best option. Like, that's just general. They will just choose the best option out there. And once you give them so many options to the point where, through dating apps and social apps, they will not choose the average guy. They will not even choose the guy who is like slightly above average. They will choose the top guy. So it is not a cope, for example, when you say that standards are unrealistic. Yes, they are unrealistic because the looks match of a male should fall into the looks match of a female. But females, women in general, they tend to shoot for much more attractive guys. Well, they completely disregard the average looking guy. So therefore, that's not a cope, but it's still fucking brutal. The 21st cope of today is that attractive people are shallow. And from my own personal observations, the people who I find to be extremely, extremely attractive, who I have seen in real life, and who I have talked to in real life, the vast majority of them are just completely shallow. They do not possess any grand knowledge. They do not possess any kind of depth in certain topics. They're just agents of nature. They're just going around sucking and fucking. They just have a good time in life. They're just drinking, having a fun time. So that's not really a cope. I just see many people who are attractive who are just shallow in their own behavior. The 22nd cope of today is that good personality makes you attractive. That's a lie. That's a total lie. If you have seen those images, if you have seen those pictures that I'm gonna be placing on the screen, that's a total lie. Your personality is linked with how you look like. And women see that. For example, when you see a girl who says that she wants a guy with a good personality, she probably thinks of a good-looking guy in general. So, yeah, people judge you on your attractiveness, not your personality at a good hand. So this goes in Your Life is a Lie. The 23rd cope of today is that you just need confidence. That's the same with confidence is everything. It falls in the same category. If it works, it works. It's good. If it doesn't work, then I'm sorry. The 24th cope of today is that the media brainwashed beauty standards. That is not a cope. That is true, but it's not in the truth of like what you really think. It brainwashed the people into thinking that fat people are attractive and that certain character traits are attractive. For example, have you ever seen those posters about, I don't know, chubby black women with buzz cuts who like do stretches, and there's like a cover saying that this is beautiful and this is that? Like, biologically, that's not attractive. Objectively speaking, I'm not. There are many people who also agree with me. For example, yes, I already said that beauty is objective and that beauty is not subjective. That I know that there are going to be people who, if they ever see this video, if this video ever gets like popular, they're gonna attack me for this. But that is not attractive. That's not showing good beauty markers. For example, beauty markers and natural health markers in women is an hourglass shape. Is the skin tone, is the quality of the hair, is the body fat percentage. That is not attractive. So yes, the media brainwashed beauty standards. The 25th cope of the day is that there is someone for everyone. I mean, statistically, if you were to really want to see it that way, yes, statistically, that is not a cope. But how do you find it? How do you find these people? Because if there is truly someone for everyone, there should be an easier time to finding it, but there are also many people who are it's just tough. It's just tough to find someone. Actually, that's not really a cope because statistics really go against that, but that's a good cope to have, so I'm putting that in helpful copes. Okay, the 26th cope of today is that Looks don't matter after 30. I mean, if you have not achieved anything before 30, looks still kind of matter. For example, there are people who are 30 who kind of still look good, who, like, for example, aged like fine wine, as people say, who still have a very good life. But you need to understand why people say this. Looks don't matter after 30. Usually the people who say that have given up on life. They just watch the footy, they watch soccer, they drink root beer, and they're just not there. You understand what I mean? They just say that to cope. So this goes in, there are flaws in your logic. Yes, this would agree, this would work if, for example, you kind of achieved everything that you wanted to achieve, and like you have like status and everything. So yes, I can see that working, but there are still many flaws in that logic. So this goes in, there are flaws in your logic tier. The 27th cope of today is work on your mindset. Unfortunately, yes, you need to work on your mindset. For example, you cannot just be an unhopeful guy just going through life and just, I don't know, just being defeated the entire life. For example, if the entire world is against you, please just you yourself be with yourself. At least that. At least I know that life is tough, but at least you boost yourself. At least you moralize your suffering. Find meaning to your own suffering. That's the reason why it is a helpful cope. Work on your mindset. Because yes, I understand that there are many people who mindset will not save them. There are many people who mindset will just outright not save them. But it is still a good cope. It is still a very helpful cope to have that idea that you should just work on your mindset. The 20th cope of today is that women/men care more about status. Men do not care about status in women whatsoever. A man can see an attractive girl working as a McDonald's cashier, and if that woman wants, that guy will marry her ASAP. The guy does not care about the status of a woman. But a woman might care about the status of a guy. But to achieve that status, your status is also kind of linked with attractiveness and looks. So this is a good, helpful cope to have. But you need to understand that this is a half-truth. So I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna put this here, because men do not care about status in women, whilst women, yes, they care about status in men. But they also need to be attractive. Those men also need to be attractive. 29. People who judge looks are insecure. That's a lie. That's a complete lie. Like, why are you... There are people who gaslight other people into saying like, oh, if you judge someone because they're attractive or if they're ugly, you're just insecure. No, you're not really insecure. You're just showing the thing that you truly value. For example, if I say, like, for example, if I insult someone based on how they look like, for example, they're ugly, that's the thing that I value. I'm not really showing that I'm insecure, I'm showing the things that I value in life. For example, I value looks, so therefore I insulted him on his looks. For example, I see that he's poor and I say like, you have some ugly ass shoes, like those shoes are poor shoes, like your clothes are falling apart, there's a hole in this, there's a hole in that. That shows that I value money. For example, there are many attractive guys who are not insecure, and they just subconsciously judge people on their looks. For example, I see someone on the street, I see in a millisecond that he's a fat Slav, and he's like balding. Of course I'm gonna automatically judge him because he's not hard working. Like, at least like get a physique, like don't be fat, at least that. Of course I'm gonna judge a person. That does not mean that I'm insecure. It just shows what I value. So that goes in your life is a lie. And the last cope of today, thank God, is self-love makes others love you. That also is one of the biggest cope. Just because you love yourself, that doesn't mean that other people will love you. Very simple. And that is that for the video. I have been recording for 50 minutes. I will have a lot of editing to do. See you guys in the next video.